Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be talking about something
Okay.
that I think is super relevant to all of us,
Mm-hmm.
which is how society can subtly make us feel like we're just not enough.
Yeah.
Have you ever scrolled through social media and just gotten this pang of envy or inadequacy?
Oh, totally.
Everyone else has it figured
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be unpacking today.
Mm-hmm.
And our sources even use the term brainwashing,
Ooh.
which I know sounds a little intense,
Yeah.
but we're going to explore what they really mean by that.
It is interesting how this feeling of inadequacy isn't about one billboard you saw
Right.
or a single mean comment someone said to you. It's like this constant drip, drip, drip of societal norms and expectations that just kind of seep into our minds
Right.
and shape how we see ourselves without us even realizing it.
So let's break down this whole societal norms thing, because our sources point to media, advertising, social media, and cultural standards.
Oh.
So basically the world around us.
Exactly. And by societal norms we're talking about. Those unwritten rules about how we're supposed to look,
Correct.
how we're supposed to act, and what we're supposed to achieve.
Okay.
For example, think about those. Picture perfect family vacation photos that you see on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's smiling, the scenery is amazing,
What?
it looks effortless, but what you don't see
Right.
is the potential travel stress.
Oh, yeah.
The arguments that might have happened behind the scenes.
Totally.
Or maybe even the fact that they're in debt.
Right.
Just to create this perfect image.
Thus, I've totally been there, spending way too much time trying to get the perfect photo
Yeah.
for social media while real life is happening
Yeah.
in the background.
Yeah.
So we're all playing this game with constantly changing rules, and
Yeah.
we'll never quite know if we're winning.
And it's not just vacations, what about that pressure to hit certain
Right.
career milestones by a certain age, Land that big promotion, buy the house. Even if it means sacrificing your personal happiness or taking on insane levels of stress.
Okay, so it's not just about looking a certain way.
Yeah.
It's about achieving certain things by a certain time. And here's the thing that really blows my mind is what's considered successful or even beautiful
Right.
can be totally different in another culture.
Exactly.
So basically, these ideals aren't some universal truth. They're often made up.
Totally.
But knowing that doesn't stop us from feeling bad
Yeah.
when we don't match up. So how do these societal norms actually get inside our heads?
Yeah, what's the psychology behind it all? Well, think of it this way.
Right.
Imagine a bucket under a leaky faucet. Each drop of water is a message from society, an ad, a comment, even something subtle, like the way certain body types are portrayed in movies. One drop doesn't seem like much, but over time...
That bucket overflows.
Exactly.
We become so used to these messages that we don't even question them anymore.
And it's a combination of factors, but that repetition is key, you know? The sheer volume of messages that we're exposed to daily makes it so easy to internalize these messages without even realizing it. And then on top of that, we start comparing ourselves to these.
Oh, the comparison game.
Yeah.
And I feel like social media is like gasoline on that fire.
Oh, absolutely. It's looking at everyone else's highlight reel 24/7.
I know.
Our sources talk about how we end up comparing everything.
Yeah.
Our body image, our career success, even our lifestyles.
Have you ever felt pressured to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak? Maybe you felt like you needed to buy a certain car or go on a fancy vacation.
Yeah.
Just because everyone else seemed to be doing it.
Yeah.
I know I have. It's that comparison trap in action.
Yeah.
But why do we fall for it?
That's where this whole brainwashing idea starts to make a little more sense.
Okay.
It's not about someone literally controlling our thoughts,
Right.
but it's about how these messages influence what we value. We start chasing external validation, likes, followers, job titles, possessions,
Right.
instead of valuing our own intrinsic worth.
So we end up chasing this external validation, thinking it's going to make us feel enough,
Yeah.
but it never really satisfies, does it?
It's like drinking salt water. The more you have, the thirstier you get.
It creates a vicious cycle.
Exactly.
The more we chase external validation, the less we value our own authentic selves.
And as our sources explain this, can lead to a chronic feeling of not being enough. And that comes with some serious consequences.
And that's where things can get really heavy. We're talking low self-esteem,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, constant anxiety. These are not small potatoes. These are real struggles that people face every day.
Yeah.
And it all kind of stems from buying into these societal norms that often have no basis in reality.
It's like we've been conditioned to believe that we're inherently flawed unless we achieve these arbitrary markers of success and happiness. But the good news is we're not stuck.
Okay, I need to hear this good news. What can we do about it?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Our sources outline some really powerful strategies for overcoming this societal conditioning.
Yeah.
And reclaiming our sense of self-worth.
Right. Give us the tools to break free.
The first step is developing what's called critical media literacy. It's about becoming like a savvy consumer of information.
Yeah.
Learning to see through those manufactured images and narratives that we're constantly bombarded with.
So we need to become more aware of the agenda behind the message and understand how it might be influencing our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
It's about taking back control.
Right? But awareness is just the first step. We also need to actively challenge those internalized beliefs that are making us feel not enough. You know, those negative thoughts that tell us.
Well, I know those thoughts. They can be so loud and convincing.
That's why it's so important to question them. Where did those beliefs come from? Are they really true? Or are they based on those external standards that we've internalized over time?
So we need to recognize those negative thoughts. And then what did we just tell them to go away?
It's more about reframing your perspective instead of focusing on what you lack. Try to focus on your strengths, your accomplishments, the things that make you unique and valuable.
So it's like we're hitting the rewrite button on those old negative tapes
that
are playing in our heads.
And while it's important to develop that internal resilience, our sources also highlight the importance of surrounding ourselves with the right people. We need supportive communities that celebrate our individuality and help us resist those societal pressures.
So find your tribe, people who lift you up and remind you of your worth.
Exactly. It's about creating a safe space where you can be your authentic self and imperfections and all.
I love that.
And that brings us to another crucial element, which is self-care.
Okay. Self-care, I think. A lot of people struggle with this.
Yeah.
They see it as selfish or indulgent.
It's actually the opposite. Self-care is about prioritizing your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. When you take care of yourself, you're better equipped to show up for others and live a more fulfilling life.
So what does that look like in practice?
It can be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to meditate or practice gratitude. It could be going for a walk in nature, spending time with loved ones, reading a book, or listening to music, whatever helps you feel grounded and connected to yourself.
It's about finding those activities that help you recharge and tune out the noise of the world.
Exactly.
And it's about setting boundaries, saying no to things that drain your energy or don't align with your values. It's about choosing you.
This is all great advice, but it still feels like a huge shift in mindset.
Yeah.
So how do we actually rewrite that narrative that we've internalized for so long, the one that says we're not enough?
That's the million-dollar question.
It's a journey of self-discovery. Each of us has to define what enough truly means for ourselves, independent of those external pressures.
Wow.
What does a fulfilling life look like to you? What are your values, your passions, your unique strengths?
That's deep.
It's about reclaiming our power, recognizing that we have the ability to choose how we define success and happiness.
I think we need to take a pause here and let all of this sink in.
You're absolutely right. We've covered a lot of ground already. But don't worry, we'll be back soon to explore even more strategies for breaking free from those societal pressures and embracing your authentic self.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll get even more specific about how this brainwashing plays out in our daily lives and what we can do to fight back. Welcome back to our deep dive into how society can make us feel not enough. In the last part, we talked about those sneaky societal norms and how they kind of get into our heads. Now let's get really real and look at some specific examples of how this plays out in our daily lives.
Okay.
I bet you'll recognize a few of these.
It's amazing how these seemingly abstract ideas show up in very concrete ways. And one of the most obvious areas where this happens is body image.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that narrow definition of beauty that's constantly shoved in our faces by the media and advertising. You know, thin, toned, often photoshopped to a level of perfection that doesn't even exist in real life.
Magazines, billboards, social media, it's like a never-ending stream of images that tell us we need to look a certain way to be considered attractive or even worse, worthy.
And it starts early, too. Think about the toys and media that are aimed at young children.
Yeah.
Even dolls are often designed with, like, unrealistic body proportions.
Setting the stage for body image issues later in life.
It's no wonder so many people, especially women, struggle with feeling good about their bodies. We're literally surrounded by messages telling us we need to change ourselves to fit some arbitrary mold.
And it goes beyond just appearance, too.
Yeah.
Think about that crazy emphasis on productivity and achievement.
Oh, in our culture, we're constantly bombarded with messages about hustling, grinding, and achieving success at all costs.
It's exhausting.
Like, when can we rest? It's like we're supposed to be constantly striving, never satisfied with what we've accomplished, always reaching for that next thing.
And then there's the pressure to have the perfect relationship, get married by a certain age, have kids, buy a house. The nut goes on and on. It's like there's this pre-approved script for how our lives should look. And if we deviate from it, we're somehow failing.
Social media definitely throws fuel on that fire, right? Everyone's curating their online persona to only showcase the best, most enviable parts of their lives. You know, the perfectly filtered photos, the announcements about promotions and achievements, the picture-perfect family moments. It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game and feel like everyone else is, like, effortlessly achieving these milestones while you're somehow falling behind.
It's the highlight reel phenomenon. We're comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's carefully crafted public image. It's a recipe for feeling inadequate. So how do we start pushing back against all of this? How do we start letting these external expectations dictate how we feel about ourselves? I'm ready to ditch this feeling of constantly needing to measure up.
It's a process, but it starts with awareness. You know, begin to pay attention to the messages that you're receiving from the media, from advertising, even from conversations with friends and family. Notice those moments when you feel a pang of envy, inadequacy, or the urge to compare yourself to someone else.
It's about becoming more critical of the information we're consuming.
Exactly.
Not just passively absorbing it, but actually asking ourselves, what's the message here? And how is it making me feel?
Ask yourself, whose voice is this? What's their agenda? And how is this message impacting me? If it's making you feel inadequate or anxious, that's a huge red flag. It might be a sign that you're being influenced,
by those societal brainwashing tactics we talked about earlier.
So step one is to wake up and notice those messages. But what's next? How do we actually start to dismantle those internalized beliefs?
It's time to get curious about those thoughts. You know, those negative thoughts that tell us we're not good enough, smart enough, attractive enough, successful enough.
Oh, I know those thoughts all too well. They can be so insidious.
And the first step is simply to notice them. Don't judge yourself for having them. But just observe them with a sense of curiosity. Where do those beliefs come from? Were they messages you received from your family, from your peers, from society at large? Are they really true? Or are they just echoes of those external standards that you've internalized over time?
So instead of just accepting those thoughts as truth, we need to question them, challenge them, and see if they actually hold up under scrutiny.
Exactly. And that's where reframing comes in. Instead of dwelling on what you think you lack.
Consciously shift your focus to your strengths, your accomplishments, those things that make you uniquely you. What are you good at? What are you proud of? What brings you joy?
It's like we're training our brains to look for the good, to focus on the positive, rather than getting stuck in that negativity spiral.
It's about rewriting that internal script, shifting from a place of self-criticism to a place of self-acceptance. And remember, this is a practice. It takes time and effort to shift those deeply ingrained patterns of thinking.
So we're working on awareness. We're challenging those negative thoughts, and we're actively looking for the good. What else can we do to break free from those societal expectations?
One thing that can be incredibly helpful is surrounding yourself with a supportive community. Find your tribe, people who lift you up, and celebrate your individuality, quirks, and all.
It's like building a force field against those negative external messages.
That's a great way to put it. You know, surrounding yourself with people who remind you of your worth and make you feel seen and accepted for who you truly are.
Seek out friends, family members, mentors, or even online communities that align with your values and make you feel good about yourself.
Don't be afraid to explore different groups and see what resonates with you. There are so many communities out there dedicated to everything from hobbies to personal growth to social activism. You're bound to find your people.
It's about being proactive,
Right.
not just waiting for those positive relationships
Totally.
to magically appear,
No.
but actively seeking them out
Yeah.
and nurturing them.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are tons of resources available, books, podcasts, therapists, support groups, you name it. There's a whole community of people out there working to break free from these societal pressures. And they want to support you on your journey.
Okay, this is all really empowering. It feels like we're finally gaining some ground against this not enough monster. But I'm wondering, what about self-care? How does that fit into all of this?
You're so right. Self-care is absolutely crucial. It's about prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being
Okay.
so that you have the strength and resilience to push back against those negative external influences. Think of it as filling your own cup first.
I love that analogy. You have something to pour from.
But I think a lot of people struggle with the idea of self-care. They see it as selfish or indulgent.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
But it's actually the opposite of selfish. When you take care of yourself, you're better equipped to show up for others and live a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that you're worthy of care and attention and that your needs matter.
So what are some practical ways that people can incorporate self-care into their daily lives? What does it actually look like?
It can be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to meditate, practice gratitude, or just breathe deeply.
Okay.
It could be going for a walk in nature, spending time with loved ones, reading a book, or listening to music, anything that helps you feel grounded, relaxed, and connected to yourself. It doesn't have to be anything fancy or expensive.
Exactly. And just as important as adding positive things to your life is setting boundaries.
Okay.
Saying no to things that drain your energy or don't align with your values. It's about protecting your time and energy and making choices that support your well-being.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm already feeling more empowered to challenge those societal pressures and embrace my authentic self. But I know it's a journey, not a quick fix. What are some things we can do to stay on track? Especially when those old feelings of not enough creep back in.
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in more detail in the final part of our deep dive. We'll talk about how to maintain a positive mindset, stay connected to your values, and continue to build that unshakable sense of self-worth, even when the world is throwing those not enough messages your way.
Stay tuned, because we're about to equip you with the tools and strategies to silence those negative voices once and for all. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about how society can make us feel like we're not enough, exploring those sneaky messages and how they impact us. But here's the big question. How do we stay true to ourselves amidst all that pressure to conform?
It's a challenge we all face, right? But here's the good news. It's like building a muscle. The more we practice these strategies, the stronger we get at resisting those negative influences.
So give us the workout plan. What are some practical steps we can take to build that staying true to myself muscle?
One of the most powerful tools is mindfulness. And by that, I don't mean sitting on a mountaintop meditating, though that's great if it's your thing. It's more about paying attention to our thoughts and feelings in the moment without judgment.
So noticing those I'm not enough thoughts when they pop up, but not beating ourselves up for having them.
Exactly. Mindfulness helps us create a little space between those thoughts and our reactions. Instead of automatically believing everything our inner critic says, we can pause and ask, is this thought really true? Is it helpful?
That's where we start to break free from that brainwashing effect, right?
Yeah.
We're not mindful. We're just on autopilot, letting those societal messages dictate our feelings and behaviors.
Exactly. Mindfulness allows us to step off the autopilot and make conscious choices about how we want to think and feel.
Mindfulness is on the list.
Yeah.
What else can we do to stay grounded in our own worth?
Setting boundaries is crucial.
Okay.
This means saying no to things that drain our energy or don't align with our values.
So if someone's constantly trying to bring you down or make you feel inadequate, you have the right to step away from that relationship, even if it's a family member.
You absolutely do. Or a close friend. It's not about being mean or cutting people off, but it's about setting healthy boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. And it applies to ourselves, too. Maybe that means limiting social media use, if it's triggering those feelings of comparison and inadequacy. Or saying no to taking on extra projects at work when you're already stretched thin.
It's about creating a space where we can nurture ourselves both mentally and emotionally.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing our well-being, even when the world is telling us to put everyone else's needs first.
We talked before about the importance of finding supportive communities. But how do we actually go about doing that?
It starts with knowing yourself. What are your values?
Okay.
What are you passionate about? What kind of people do you want to surround yourself with?
So it's not just about finding any group of people. It's about finding your tribe.
Exactly.
People who share your values and make you feel seen and accepted for who you are.
And don't be afraid to explore different communities and see what feels right. There are countless online and offline groups for everything, from hobbies to personal growth to social activism.
It's almost like creating a chosen family. People who support and encourage you on your journey.
Yeah. And sometimes you might even be the one to start that community.
Oh, wow.
Reach out to people you admire, connect with like-minded individuals, and build those relationships intentionally.
Okay, so we're being mindful of our thoughts, setting healthy boundaries, and surrounding ourselves with awesome people. Any final nuggets of wisdom to help us on this journey of self-acceptance?
Remember, you're not alone in this. We all struggle with feelings of inadequacy sometimes. It's part of the human experience.
Right.
But the more we practice self-awareness, self-acceptance, and mindfulness, the more we realize we are enough just as we are.
That's a great reminder. Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive. We've learned so much about how societal pressures can make us feel not enough.
Yeah.
And more importantly, how to break free from those limiting beliefs.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate your progress. And never stop questioning those messages that try to tell you you're not enough. You have the power to write your own story.
And that's a wrap on the deep dive. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are capable, you are enough.